Kinokuniya Bookstore would like to welcome Will Jelbert, author of Wordwise, published by Running Press. Thanks for coming by to sign copies of your book for us, Will. Can we start by asking why you wrote the book or what prompted you to become Wordwise?
Sure. Before I do that, I'd just like to say thank you for inviting me to the store today. It's my first social interaction for some time, so I'm feeling good about being out again. Thank you. It probably started during the writing of my first book, The Happiness Animal. There was, the first chapter in that book was about honesty, which I said in that book was a muscle that can be exercised for happiness, 1 of 5. And at that time in 2013, I wanted to find out who's the world expert on the subject of honesty. And it seemed apparent that this man called Brad Blanton, Dr. Brad Blanton, a psychotherapist from Virginia, was that man. He'd written several books. Radical Honesty was one of them. I read that book, and then I found out he was running an 8-day honesty workshop in Greece. And so I went to Greece, and I met the man, Brad Blanton, and I've been in contact with him to this day. Even this week I've been speaking to him. So when I went on this workshop, Brad was helping people to express themselves, and he was doing it by focusing on their word choices as well as their body language. But a lot of it had to do with word choices, and I saw during that workshop the power of specifics. So he helped couples to get over what he called shit by first allowing them to express the resentments, specific resentments that each person had to each other. And then I saw after a couple of minutes, these same people who'd been resenting the crap out of each other started to appreciate each other again, and they were crying. Some of the couples they actually ended up breaking up, but the ones who didn't, they became very intimate as a result of that workshop, and it was down to language choice. That showed me that week in Greece changed everything for me.
Amazing. So at least half of your book is dedicated to talking about word trash. What is word trash, and why did you call it that?
So word trash is language that gets in the way of human connection. It's abstractions. I'll go back to the word specifics, because anything, word trash is not specific. It's, think of it as plastic bags that covering up something beautiful. Or say you put a plastic sheet over the top of the Taj Mahal, so you couldn't admire the white marble and the precious stones glimmering, because the plastic is in the way. So word trash could be unnecessary adverbs like essentially or fundamentally. These are, maybe smarter sounding adverbs. They project this image that I understand the fundamentals or the essence of something, but the statement is stronger without them. But that's one of the less harmful kinds of word trash. I would say word trash that does the most damage to human relationships is something I call lie makers. And the most common examples of that are the words always, never, and should. So think about if you and I are married, and I come home, and you say to me, "Hey Will, you always forget to take the trash out," or "You never remember." I know that's not true, so I'm going to get upset with you. I can defend myself, rightly so. I can say, "Well, I put the trash out last week, I know I did, and the week before. So what's this always talk? I always forget? I never remember?" And then I would perhaps, get unnecessarily, that's another verb, unnecessarily angry with you, my partner, and say, "Well, you're always moaning at me." And then suddenly we're having an argument about trash that didn't even need to happen. If you just say, "Would you be willing to take the trash out right now? You haven't taken it out this week yet." I could say yes, and then we would have avoided that argument.
In the book, you often draw a distinction between specific and the abstract, and say that we are connected by specific, whereas the abstract disconnects us.
So if you think about, think about electricians. They wire appliances up by matching the color cord, the red cord to the red cord on the appliance. If you connect the red wire to the blue wire, what is going to happen? What's going to happen if you plug that appliance in? You're going to get a shock. But so to form a human connection, we are human electricians, so we have to be specific. If you ask me a question, Or if we're in conversation, you talk about coffee, that's a distinguishing detail in your sentence. If I ignore that you use the word coffee and my responding sentence has none of the words that you used in your sentence, then I'm not going to connect with you. You're going to feel like I am not listening to you, and so that's going to disconnect us. But that's a bit off topic. You asked what is abstract and why does it disconnect us? Abstractions is taking a specific, like last Wednesday, and turning it into always. Abstract is not doing something last week and turning it into never. Abstract is calling Donald Trump a monster. Not that I like him, but dehumanizing him, what's that? That's not going to allow for a conversation about the specifics that he's doing wrong. Abstract is anything that's not specific. Something that's not specific. Not something that is not specific. Yeah. And I think it's also, one thing I want to bring up is polarizing language. So think about always and never, they're quite polarizing. But think about the language that people use on social media at the moment. If you're not a supporter of Trump, you're a hater. So this language of hater, lover, supporter, and then these words keep coming up a lot more recently. You can check this on Google Ngram as well, because it tracks the use in books. So, it's got a corpus of books up until, I think, 2012 now. You type in a word and it'll show you how usage has gone up. Exaggerators have gone up a lot. Polarizing language like always, never. Monster has gone up since the advent of social media. And Twitter, people are using the word enemy, they're using the word evil, they're using the word monster, they're using the word war in contexts which aren't an actual war, like the Iraq War or the Gulf War. So that language, that polarizing language, it's having the effect of dividing not just the United States, but every country where that language is being used. If you don't agree with one group, you're othered. You're the other side. You're called out as intrinsically different. That's what the damage that abstract language can do. Yeah.
So you also say that small talk is word trash. Why is small talk a problem?
Well, all right. I like talking about small talk. It's less serious, because I was getting quite serious then. But one thing I appreciate you for today, Rafael, is that you didn't say to me as soon as you saw me, "How's everything?" That's a common greeting. Have you heard it today?
No.
How's everything?
Yeah.
Well, who can answer that question? If you knew how everything was, you'd be hunted down for your brain. You'd have the NSA spying on you, and every artificial intelligence, company would be trying to get hold of you. So how do you respond to the question, how's everything? Normally with more small talk, right? And then you're just like, I feel slightly uncomfortable right now. I don't really want to continue this conversation, or I want to get to specifics. How do we get to specifics? So if someone asks you, Rafael, how's everything? I recommend you could say, I don't know how everything is, but this meatball sub is fantastic. Or if you wanted to respond with word trash, you could say, this meatball sub is everything. And that happens too, right? We say, oh, this book is everything. No, it's not. No, I like this book. It's a great book. Buy the book. But it's not everything. And a meatball sub, if we say something is everything, either we're lying or we're delimiting everything to the width of a sandwich, a meatball sub, or both. So, let's be specific. Let's say, I don't know how everything is, but my morning, I got a great result back from the doctor, so that was good. Or, how was your morning? How was dinner last night? Just focus on one, still quite open-ended, but it's a little bit more specific, easier to connect. Yeah. So it's harmful because it prevents relationships from forming. Yeah.
So we talked about word trash, and in the second part of your book, you write about word power. What's that exactly?
There's a quote from Quack This Way, written by an author, David Foster Wallace. And he said that writing and speaking well means there's an electricity about it. So that's why I call it word power. And get back to the idea of connection. specific words help us to connect with each other. It could be I resent you for walking away from me when I'm talking to you. Or it could be I appreciate you for the way you looked at me last night when I was talking to that other person. That's specific because it's a time. Word power is specific language that helps us to get to know each other better and to be more at one with another. And an example of that would be if I wanted to persuade you to do something, there's a word that can change the course of a conversation. It's willing. So the word willing. Most adjectives are junk, apart from colours, but willing is an example of an adjective that helps us to connect. So try this out when you're next asking a colleague to help you with something. Say, would you be willing to do this for me tomorrow, now, whenever, and see what the response is, rather than what's the common way to ask for help. What do people use?
Would you like?
Would you like is a good one. So would you like it is word trash, because nobody really wants to take the garbage out. But would they be willing to do it? Hell yes, maybe, right? But would you be willing? What it does, it helps to create that connection because it puts the will into the person you're asking to do it. So then they feel like, oh, it's of their own will, their own choosing to do it, not because they're doing a favor to you. So can you do me a favor is not a good way to ask for help. That's more word trash. Would you be willing is word power. Willing itself, it's a strong word. Another thing, so there's some science to that, okay? A social professor of social interaction at the University of Loughborough in the UK. I had to take a deep breath because of the mask. Loughborough in the UK. She studied her and her colleagues, they studied thousands of hours of conversations, and they looked at psychologists made their patient to go to a meditation session. Initially, the patients had said no, but when the same patients were asked, would you be willing to go to this meditation session? Some of them changed their mind. They even interrupted the psychologist to say yes, they would go. So that's how powerful willing is. And the same thing happened with doctors. Would you be willing to go to a weight loss class? People had said no, and obese people, and when they were asked, would you be willing? Yep, more of them went. They said yes. Another example of it is using the verb speak rather than talk. Think about talk. It's used with so many other idioms, like you talk the talk, but you don't walk the walk. Talk is cheap. Whereas speaking, you visualize a mouth and a tongue moving and words coming out of someone's mouth. Talking, yeah, you might imagine that as well, but it's associated with lots of other things. And so in a crisis situation, you can form a connection with a person in distress by asking them something more specific than, would you like to speak about this, or can we speak about this? If you say, can we talk, people are likely to say no. And one final example, often at the end of presentations, people will add a slide that says any questions. Any is very open-ended. It's difficult to connect with. It's word trash. Often in presentations I found that people don't ask questions if you have a slide that says any questions. But if you're more specific and you say, does someone have a question, or who has a question about this? More likely to open up a dialogue, a connection.
You also say that emojis can be word power, but emojis are not words, are they?
Well, that's what I thought. I didn't think emojis were words. I changed my mind this year. I thought about it for about a month, and then I discovered that in 2015, an emoji, the face with tears of joy emoji, was word of the year in Oxford dictionaries. I'm not going to argue with Oxford dictionaries. I'm from England, okay? Oxford is the authority. Don't tell anyone this, but yeah, we're not going to go down that route. But it was the word of the year in 2015, the laughing with tears of joy. Now think about emoji is that it expresses sometimes 4 or 5 words in one little round face. And it takes up, the average English word is 4.5 characters long. An emoji is less than that. So something is more efficient at communicating more in less space. You know, it doesn't, and what is language? It's a symbol. Words, you know, it doesn't have to be words. It's a symbol that represents meaning. Some people say that the first languages were click languages, sounds. All right, then we had hieroglyphics. There's visual representations of meaning. So all that matters is the symbol's connection to meaning, not necessarily that it's what we would call a word. So that's why I don't have a problem with saying that emoji is a word. Yeah, Oxford said it was a word. I agree, it's a word.
You talk about happy words. There are words that can make us feel happier?
Yes, there are. So, not too far away from New York, in the University of Vermont in Burlington, 3 or 4 researchers teamed up and they wanted to identify the top 10,000 words that by usage across Twitter books. Oh, sorry, Twitter. Twitter doesn't have books. Let's hope Twitter doesn't have
Not yet.
Google Books, Twitter, music lyrics, and there's something else that I'm forgetting. In the New York Times. How can I forget the New York Times? So, top 10,000 words, right? Using those sources. And then they asked research participants to rate those words for how much happiness they felt when they saw it. What they called psychological valence. They didn't use the word happiness, but psychological valence is attractive emotion. So let's call it happiness. It's easier. And they found, can you guess what the top word for the word that scored the highest for psychological valence or happiness across the 10,000?
Coffee.
Coffee?
For me.
That coffee would have been high on my list as well, for sure. No, it was laughter.
Really?
Yeah, and there's not enough laughter in the media world. It didn't make the top 10,000 words in the New York Times or Google Books, but it did in Twitter and music lyrics. The word laughter is used in music quite often. So it's a good thing that was included in the study because it was rated higher than the word happiness itself for eliciting a feeling of happiness. So that's the. But let's go back. That's what researchers are saying is the happiest word. There are other words that their meaning is associated with spirit, feeling of inspiration. So a word that I like is eudaimonia. It's a Greek word that's been used for thousands of years for happiness, and it translates, you can't translate it in one word, but it means of good spirit. And my definition of happiness is, is feeling that it's almost connected to inspiration. If you think about what is feeling in love, what is that? What is it being in love? It's being inspired by affection. So this connection to spirit, the daemon in eudaimonia, is it's what happiness is all about for me. So words like inspiration, inspire, they're all deeply connected to happiness.
Thank you for that. And as a wrap up, we're curious to know, are you yourself ever at a loss for words?
Yes, I am. So, yeah, that happens. When it happens to me, am I at a loss for words now? No, but it happens to me. What I would do is, one tip I would give you is to just notice. So what's in this room? Oh look, there's a book by Marcel Chasseau. Haven't heard of that guy. Maybe I would ask you, have you heard of this guy? We can start talking about Marcel Chasseau. Or we could talk about the orange sweater you're wearing. And I'd be like, is that your favorite sweater to wear to work when you come to work?
People will say that, yes.
Okay, so that would be a connection point. And whenever I'm lost for words, just look around. Use your 5 senses.
Fantastic. So thank you so much for being here today, Will.
My pleasure.
We'd like our audience to know that. As you likely can see, Will is here today to sign copies of his book, and we will have signed copies available as long as the signed copies last. And that might not be so long. So if you liked what you heard today and want to get your signed copy, don't wait. You can order through our website, pick up a copy at store, or give us a call. Wordwise by Will Jelbert from Running Press, and get your copy today.